I am the Sanderson Collector. Welcome to the Sanderson Library, where there's always another book. It's kind of weird how these things pop up sometimes, like you think people know every Sanderson book out there, and then I go and dig up another one that no one has heard of. I think the book that I have today is one that only Brandon himself has a copy of. And so I bring you The Mystery of Page 309. People often ask how I find all these crazy things and figure them out, so I'm going to go through a little bit of a story today, and I'm going to tell you how I came to know that this book existed, what it was, and how to get it. I have recently started driving, and on my drives I listen to the Intentionally Blank podcast, where Brandon and his friend Dan Wells, who is also an awesome author in his own right, chat about whatever they want to that day. I have been listening to this and really enjoying it, but that's a tangent for another day. I was listening to episode 6 the other day, starting to catch up, and episode 6, Dan Ruins Everything, at about the 40-minute mark, Brandon tells a story. And this story has some very interesting tidbits. This is about the movie that, as far as I can tell, is the closest movie Brandon has ever had to being made. And it's probably not any of the ones you would expect. So back in like 2010 or so, Brandon sold the rights to the Alcatraz series to DreamWorks Entertainment, and they worked very hard to get the movie made, inspired by things like the success of the Lemony Snicket series, and they went through, they wrote a script, they did concept art, they did storyboards, they brought Brandon in for a 15-second meeting with the guy who runs DreamWorks, and all kinds of cool stuff. They eventually decided not to make the movie because they told Brandon, oh, this is great, but it would make a better live-action movie than an animated movie, so we're not going to do it here at DreamWorks, and so it never went anywhere. In this discussion of his movie that almost got made, Brandon mentioned that a piece of this concept art for Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, the animated movie by DreamWorks Animation, was put out in one of the DreamWorks Animation Big Art books. And I immediately went and looked around. There's a word of Brandon about this as well on the Coppermind, which I found, but I could not find any references to the specific book that this was in. I looked on the internet, I found there is a big book called The Art of DreamWorks Animation, which has art from a bunch of movies. I found a flip through of the entire book on YouTube and watched it, didn't find anything. I emailed Brandon's team and asked, and I got a reply from Isaac, who is absolutely amazing, and he said, yes, that is the correct book. On page 309, there is one piece of concept art, and he showed me a still from the video that I had sent with the flip through of where it was. And so I went out, I found the US hardcover, and I bought The Art of DreamWorks Animation. Now, that's actually an oversimplification. What happened is I looked for this book online, and I found that it's out of print, and it was selling for rather high prices, so I looked around, I looked on eBay, and I had thought the book was only out in hardcover, but I found a listing for a damaged paperback copy, and I was very confused until I looked at the copyright page for this paperback copy, and it listed a paperback and hardcover ISBN that differed from the regular book's ISBN, and it said it was put out by the ACMI, the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, and apparently also the National Museum of Australia. So I went and looked on their website, and I was able to find the hardcover, but not the paperback, and I ordered a stack of those hardcovers, which have since come in. So I have The Art of DreamWorks Animation in the bootleg Australian edition, I guess. And it has a few differences with the US edition. All of the same art and everything else is inside. There's a very slight difference on the spine. There are differences on the copyright page, and so on. I ended up not getting that paperback edition because it was damaged, and shipping was going to be very expensive. And so these are the editions that I have. I've got the US hardcover and the Australian hardcover. And I guess it's time to go ahead and look through and figure out what is actually on page 309. So this book is arranged with artwork from various movies that Pixar has put together, and this is in the middle of the section about the movie Home from 2014, which I personally have not seen. And in the middle of it, there is this page. If you look here, this page at the top has the word Alcatraz, and at the bottom in small text, versus the evil librarians. This is concept art from the Alcatraz movie from DreamWorks Animation that never got made. There is no explanation of whose art this is. There is no note that this is even art from a different movie than the rest of the stuff in this section. The note does not reference that at all. It's just this one page that Brandon happened to mention offhand in a single podcast episode for all of 5 seconds that I picked up on, sleuthed out, hunted down, and now I have 2 of the editions of this book. I also don't fully understand the art in here, because if you look at it, the art doesn't have really any relationship to the books as far as I can tell. It's just meant to be confusing, weird stuff going on. So I'm actually really curious what they did with the book in the script, but I'll probably never get to see that. Anyway, those are the editions, and that is the secret of page 309. Before I go, there is one more edition of this book, technically. There's the hardcover, the Australian hardcover, the Australian paperback, which I still need to find and get, and there's a French edition of this book. If you want a copy for yourself, you're probably going to be paying a bit over $100 for a US copy. That's what I paid for mine, and it was the cheapest one I could find. Or you can go in and get an Australian copy. Shipping to the US is fairly expensive. However, shipping is the same for 1 book, 2 books, 3 books, or 4 books. So I got 4 copies of this book, and I will be splitting them and sending the other 3 to various friends in the States, and we're splitting the shipping costs that way, and it ended up significantly cheaper, especially with the conversion from Australian to US dollars, than getting the US edition. And like I said, the edition that I even showed was the Australian edition. It has the exact same art in it on page 309. I hope you've really enjoyed this journey with me today as I took you through my rather convoluted path to finding the next Sanderson book that nobody knew about, and I've been very happy to be able to add this to my collection. This is probably the deepest dive, most obscure, tangentially related Sanderson thing that I have collected, and it absolutely delights me that I'm able to find things like this and collect them. And I will be back next week with who knows what video, and until then, happy collecting.